All right, so welcome to your second success session. I am amazed at the turnout here tonight, and that's wonderful. That tells me you all got my email today, and I just wanted to again touch on, even though you're here, there are some people watching this video that I really do think, even though this is a Zoom and you're basically just asking or getting questions answered in the chat, it is helpful to get this live just to have it checked off. But always getting the information from the video is fine as well. It's just the main idea is that we want you to get this information. In the email that I sent today, reminding you about this, I did touch on, and I think all of us in the office are experiencing this a lot more recently, where we have students in our office upset. And most of the time they are upset at themselves. They realize it's their mistakes. But most of the time when we find that people are upset because they've made a mistake in their planning, I go and look at the success session attendance and they've never attended one. So that's why we're really pushing these to be a requirement that you have to be here or watch the video and kind of prove that you have watched the video, because just telling people that this is information that's useful in the past few years has not been enough. People have just not been taking this information in and then making pretty major mistakes in some cases where things aren't going to transfer the way they want, or they're not going to finish their degree. So rant's over. I'm going to carry on with the new stuff, but thank you all for being here. And that's a great step. So there's a few updates that we'll talk about. A reminder about your spring testing. The big bulk of everything today is getting ready for registration for fall semester. And then a big subset of that is that there's a huge change happening at SC4 with their math courses. I'll get into a lot more detail. It's a big change, but it's not going to affect you that much. So, it's just kind of knowing what's going on will be helpful. And then we'll just refresh pretty quickly on what to think about when you're choosing your courses. A quick refresh on high school scheduling, since you'll be planning for your 12th grade year there. And then just a reminder about prepping for the SAT. In the in-person session, we had a visit from Dr. O'Brien, Suzanne O'Brien. She is the chair of the humanities department, and she's taken on kind of this like mindfulness journey. Sounds very mindfulness based, but she personally felt like she needed it a few years ago, as I am feeling right now, so scattered and overwhelmed and behind and busy and overscheduled. And so she was like, I need a way to kind of chill out, basically. So this is her contact information, and I'm going to send you, there'll be a flyer that will come with this presentation. I really urge you to at least check it out, shoot her an email. There's some workshops that she's going to be doing that all of us in the office are willing and ready to join you in those if anybody signs up. So Mr. Ruiz had sent an email about this and nobody really responded. So either you guys are killing it in the mental health department, or you just kind of don't have the time to give to it, or aren't making the time. And that's my biggest thing, is thinking I don't have time to once a week think about mindfulness. I just have to keep checking through the to-do list, but probably the to-do list would go a lot smoother if I took the time to kind of slow down a little bit. So just a word. We'll send that flyer. And then if you have any questions, you can ask any of us, or you can reach out directly to Dr. O'Brien. And some of you may have already had her for an English class, and she's wonderful. She's an awesome teacher. And I think she would do a really good job kind of guiding people through this. Just moving from this moment of Zen to stress, is that there's 6 weeks left of winter semester. So, and actually you're kind of in that week right now. So that's 6 weeks until finals start. So it's actually even kind of less when we're looking at that. Finals week is the first week of May, and then you are done for the year. So that's wonderful. You have that end in sight. And the next month and a half is really pretty busy, since you're going to be going on spring break or being off from your high school, but hopefully still doing all of your college stuff and taking the SAT, wrapping up this first year. So it's a hectic month and a half, registering for next year, a bunch of stuff you'll be doing, but then you'll be done pretty early and be able to enjoy the rest of the school year. But it's really important at this point to make sure that you're still trying, working hard, getting to every class. If you are struggling, the number one thing that I always recommend is, have you talked to the instructor? Have you asked them for help? Asked for their recommendations about where to get help, tutors that they might recommend. The SC4 tutors are awesome. They are back in person. You can pop into the library anytime and somebody is there during this work day. Basically, they have other hours that you can get to at sc4.edu/tutoring, which I will include in the email follow-up. But worst case scenario, the withdraw deadline is a little over a month from now on Friday, April 21st. You are not able to just go in and withdraw your class without permission. So you would need to contact one of us in the office, and we would just sort of talk you through what's going on. Do you know where you stand? And it doesn't make sense, basically. Have you tried enough things that we would normally recommend? Meeting with an instructor, trying tutoring, kind of upping what time you're giving it for the studying and your homework, other strategies for your studying. So those would be the things that we would ask, have you done, and suggest for you to do when we meet. So you could get a start on that now and reach out to us and set up an appointment if that's something that you're thinking about or think is necessary. I will say we do push back a little bit because through the years, we've had people come in a panic and need to withdraw from something. And then they talk to the instructor and they find out actually they have a B. I've had people actually, one time I had somebody with an A, a solid A, but think that things were going so poorly and just not really realizing, oh, she had these other grades that were helping there. Or I don't know. I really don't even know why that person thought they were struggling with an A, but it happens. So those are things that we want to just make sure that you really have a clear idea of where you're at. And is it that drastic that you need to actually withdraw? So let us know about that. Academic warning is a possibility looming if things don't go well. So whenever any student at SC4 or any college, if your GPA dips below a 2.0, that college then puts you on academic warning for the following semester. So if you happen to, after the semester, end up with a GPA below 2, then you'd be on warning next fall. You then have one semester to fix that. So over the fall, you bring it back up over a 2 point and you are good to go and move on. But if you don't get that above a 2.0, you're suspended for the following semester from SC4. So what that means is you're not kicked out of the middle college, you're still a part of our school, but then we have to find a way for you to be full-time student without taking college classes. It means that you basically have to take high school classes online in our office to be able to fill out your schedule. And it creates a whole ball of kind of consequences. So if you are in danger of this, you're probably kind of also maybe thinking about withdrawing. If this is a direction that you think you are headed, we need to talk to you. You need to come in and talk to one of us and we can help you figure it out. But just keep working hard. Every point on every assignment really can make a huge difference in your overall grade and getting like from one grade to the next, basically. This is also kind of the last time we'll have you all together before the end of the semester. So just a reminder that you do have to return your books at the end of the semester. We can start taking them, or the SC4 bookstore can start accepting book returns April 24th. That is the week before finals though. So depending on what you have left for your class, don't turn in your book if you still have things that you need to do, or if you have a final that following week. Finals week again is May 1st through 5th. We can then accept books until that following Monday. That's the Monday after exam week. I do, though, always recommend just drop your books off the last time you're going to be on campus. So for your last exam, if you're in person, or if you have 2 online classes or whatever your scenario, get it in that finals week so that when the semester is done, you can be done with it and you don't have to worry about coming back to campus. If you do not get them in on time, there's at least the $25 late fee for the fine, and potential for a lot more of charges and costs depending on the cost of the book. Do they need to buy a new book to cover for somebody for the next semester? And so it could be up into the hundreds depending on the cost of the book and what you have to return. If anything has happened where you've lost it or it's damaged or whatever, the best way to handle that is just to kind of talk to Mrs. Lawson and see where you're at. Like, we can help you figure it out, but you have to communicate with us and let us know what's going on. So get those in by May 8th, or ideally after your last exam, you drop them off, you leave, and you're done with us or done with the college until August, which is, I think, a good feeling, probably. It's been a long time since I finished a semester personally. You do keep your Chromebooks over the summer, so that's wonderful. You have them to use however you're using them, hopefully responsibly. And just be smart though. So keep them away from beaches, pools, campgrounds. We have had all variety of Chromebooks get damaged or lost or dropped in the water or left at a campground. That's why that's on there. So just make sure you're being responsible with it. If it's damaged at all, same with the books, let us know. The easiest way for us to help you is for us to know what's going on. And that's the best way that we can hopefully solve it for you so that you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. Just a word about the Chromebooks. They are relatively cheap, cost effective. And so that means they do break, like that you get what you pay for, I guess. And so keys will fall off or things will stop working. A very common thing is that a Chromebook maybe doesn't hold the charge or only charges, or you can only use it if it's plugged in. If you're experiencing something like that, that's not your fault. Bring it in and we can get you a new one. But that would be, ask us what's going on. And most of the time we're going to say, oh yeah, that's a common thing. That's not your fault. And we'll get you a new one. Once in a while, we might be like, well, what'd you do? And we'll talk then about how you replace it or what would happen. So the MME testing is basically what they call, it's the Michigan Merit Exam testing. All schools are required, obviously, to have students do this each year. There's different testing each year, but this being your junior year, you're taking the big test, which is the SAT, which you do on Wednesday, April 12th, and the ACT work keys the following day on Thursday, April 13th. These typically take the entire morning. If you are going to one of the partner high schools, Northern, PH, Memphis, Yale, KPAC, Algonac, you would be taking that at your high school, and they'll be giving you details about how and when and where you'll be for that. If you're an unaffiliated student or coming from a homeschool background with us, you're full-time SC4 student, you would be taking that with us, and Mr. Ruiz will be emailing you with details. But it would still be those same dates, and it would just be, I think usually he has a room set up in the Welcome Center, probably basically where your seminar or the orientation was. So keep an eye out your email in your email for that. When you are filling out they call it like the bubbling, where you're filling in your name and your address and all the information the College Board needs to have, there's a whole period of time where you fill that out before you even take the test. There's also an opportunity for you to list what colleges you want your scores sent to. Make sure to include SC4 for that, because you can use your SAT scores for placement. If you've already taken the AccuPlacer and you're placed into the English and math that you want, then you don't need to do that, but it is helpful if you have the space. If you don't have the space, there's opportunity later on to have your scores sent to SC4 or any college after the fact. So it's not like you need to have that figured out all this month. You can always have those scores sent later. It just sometimes is for a cost. So there is a summary of the prep and practice resources that will be posted on the website. Our website used to have all these wonderful videos that were extremely interesting and captivating, probably actually very boring, but very informative, that I made in the last few years. And the website actually was redesigned. All of the RISA websites were, and a bunch of our videos disappeared. So I'm actually going to be making new videos for a lot of this stuff in the next few days and getting that up so that you have it. But we also did go through the prep and practice resources in the first success session that you had earlier this winter. So that information is in that first video. So for right now, you can access that there, and it's going to be pretty much the same information as the new video I make. That's just that information. So I'll be sending the link to the first success session video in the email follow-up from tonight. So look for that if you want a refresher on any of that. I hope people are doing some stuff on Khan Academy in the in-person version of this session last Friday, I would say maybe a third of the people have done anything. So that is concerning. The free stuff is out there and it really makes a huge difference. No matter how much you can do, it is helpful. If you could only give it 2 hours, give it 2 hours. Don't not do it because you can't give it more time. So give whatever time you can in the next month, and it really will make a huge difference. Okay, so the big why you're here is getting ready for fall registration. So fall semester registration opens Monday, April 17th, technically that Sunday night at midnight, like the 16th. And we have talked about that in the past, staying up till midnight. Sure, that's wonderful, but sometimes the system will crash. Most of the time, especially for fall registration, where there's a huge window of time between when registration opens and the semester begins, it's probably very safe to do your planning, get all of your classes into your plan, into your schedule, and you can wait until you wake up Monday morning for school and go in and make that official. Very, very, very rarely have I seen anything fill up overnight. But if you are very, very particular about what classes and the times and the teachers you want, then maybe it does mean set your alarm, wake yourself up at like 1 a.m. so you miss the midnight crash that happens. So things, we have talked about this stuff, but just this is a little bit of a refresher on what to be considering when you're choosing your courses. Primarily, what do you need for your degree? And we'll talk a little bit about the degrees and in the context of the math changes. It is time to start really thinking about prerequisite courses this first year. It's okay if you just kind of picked 3 random courses that were maybe on that list we gave you last year when you were a new incoming student that we talked to. But now it's time to get a little bit more intentional about what you're taking. And if you have some ideas about where you want to go and what you want to do, we can really look ahead to see what can transfer to 4-year schools after SC4. You may be choosing to take college classes to finish high school graduation requirements, and we'll talk about kind of pros and cons for that. And then lastly, just things that fit your schedule. And so we'll talk about, you have kind of an extra hour now that you'll just be doing 3 classes at the high school instead of 4 next year. So the big thing, SC4 math course changes. So the longest story short is that every college in Michigan is in the process of making some changes to their math course numbers. And we're not the first college to do this. There's a few that have already done it, and there's probably people that will beat to it. But the community colleges, 4-year schools, everyone is aware of these changes being required kind of everybody. The why of it doesn't actually affect you. It's for a new scholarship that the state has created for returning adults that want to go back to college, but it has some basically requirements of the schools, these new scholarships, and it's basically eliminating these things called developmental education classes. So those were classes that were below a 100 level. And actually there were classes that we were not able to pay for. Your parents may have called them remedial classes, like that's kind of what they used to be called. They're basically like expensive, time-consuming prerequisites. So those are being removed. And there's some new classes being introduced with support that are basically going to accomplish the same thing. So it's not something that was really had to do with us or high school students taking college classes or students that were already in college, but it's going to actually benefit current college students, including yourselves. So the actual courses and the names of those courses are not changing. It's just the course numbers. And it's just basically going to be the difference of a number. So actually, I think I'll click over to that. So if you have already done your math, which not very many people have, but let's say you already took Math 104 and that's all you need, that the previous courses will still count towards degrees. They'll still count towards transferability. It's just anybody taking a math course in the future will be taking it with these new numbers. So let's go look at all of these things I will be sending to you. So You don't have to, like, if you want to take pictures or anything while we're in here, that's fine. But you'll also be getting these as documents in the email that follow up that I send tomorrow morning. So these are the changes that are being made. So you can see Math 104, previously known as Math 104, Foundations of Math. It's still going to be called Foundations of Math. It's just now going to be Math 110 or 1100. It's going to take me a while to start referring to these as the right numbers. Sorry. Then there's some, so basically you can see the old course number, what the name of it is, and what the new one is called, or the new number for it. And then you can see there's some new courses. So the first ones to point out are, you can see Math 104, Foundations of Math. Right underneath it, there's a new course, Foundations of Math with Support, is Math 1101. Any of these course numbers that end in 1 are the with support classes. So there's 3. There's a with support option to go along with Math 104, Foundations of Math. There's a with support option for intermediate algebra, formerly known as Math 110, basically the equivalent to Algebra 2. And there's a with support option for Introduction to Statistics. All 3 of these with support classes you can place into with the AccuPlacer, or you can choose to self-place yourself into those classes. I recommend, and I'll get further into this, but I recommend taking the AccuPlacer regardless. Like, just kind of find out where you land, because you might place higher than that and not actually need that support. But the placement charts have been updated, and I'll include those in the email I send you as well. I should have them up. I might be able to get those up to kind of show you. But so you would take the AccuPlacer, see where you place, and then go from there. This other one, the new course, Math for Everyday Life, I'll touch on in a little bit more detail, kind of back here in the thing, so I make sure I'm hitting everything. So the same placement rules apply. You can place into math classes with AccuPlacer, so taking the AccuPlacer and seeing what your scores are. Your SAT scores. If you want to take English or math in the fall semester, you won't be able to wait for your SAT scores. You would want to take the AccuPlacer now so that you can get that immediate placement. Because your SAT scores, the college, even if you put them as a school to have your scores sent to, will not get those scores until the summer. So rather than waiting for that, I just recommend taking the AccuPlacer. If all else fails, an option that you will have a year or a little over a year from now is that you can use your high school transcript for placement, but this is only after you have finished 12th grade. They won't let you do it this spring for next fall. It wouldn't be until the end of next school year. So the way you would qualify for that, if that's something that you might use in the future, is basically they will look at your highest or final math class, and you have to have at least a B or higher in both semesters of that. And then your overall GPA, both for your high school GPA and your SC4 GPA, have to be a 3.0 or above. So that can be something that you kind of keep in your mind. But again, I really think the AccuPlacer is pretty accurate to show you where you would place. A lot of times people do great in the high school math, and then they do struggle. So it's important to see on that test how it actually goes, and then go from there. But that can be an option for later on. So again, I recommend you take the AccuPlacer and then take whatever class level it places you into. If you take that test and you're like, I know that there were some that I got wrong, that I kind of knew I was choosing the wrong thing, you can always retake the AccuPlacer. There is a bunch of tutoring that they recommend, and there's information at this page, sc4.edu/testing, which we will go to if it will connect. Yeah, so the testing center has a whole page where they also explain, like, you can schedule the test just by clicking the link. You can call, you can email them. There's lots of times available. They have some evening appointments even. If, like, it's saying it would take 2 hours to complete, it probably would be about an hour that you should arrange, like, plan for that. And then when you scroll down and click on the AccuPlacer, there's more information about the actual test. and links to some study materials. We also, on our website, bluewatermiddlecollege.org, have a page under students and then AccuPlacer. And again, all these links are going to be emailed to you, but we have some information here as well. The SC4 Testing Center actually recommends that you use Khan Academy to study for the AccuPlacer, which is, again, what you should also be doing right now to study for the SAT. So that could be kind of a double two birds with one stone situation. If you do some studying over the next month, take the SAT and then maybe schedule the AccuPlacer right around then, and all that stuff will be fresh in your head. In the past few years, we've been seeing an increase where instructors are giving overrides into math classes for students that are not actually placed into that class. So they took the AccuPlacer or the SAT and their scores aren't placing them. And a student will reach out to an instructor and say, I have testing anxiety. I'm really good at math, but I just do bad on the test, or whatever reasoning they're giving. And instructors have been giving overrides and letting students into these classes, and then people are struggling, right? So a lot of times we're meeting with students and they're struggling in this math class. And I'm like, how did you even get in that? Because you're not placed into it. Well, my instructor gave me an override. They have been informed or suggested not to be giving these overrides anymore because there are these options for classes with support. So they want students to kind of take the help, take the support classes, get that foundation before you move on to higher level math, basically. So if you're already planning to take a specific class and you've placed into it with the AccuPlacer, you're just going to register for the new course number. So Math 104 will count towards the Associate of Arts. 113 and 120 count for either arts or science, and they're basically just new numbers now. So 104 is now Math 1100. Math 113 is now Math 1130. Math 120 is now Math 1120. So if that's your final math class, you would just basically choose the new class. These are the options with support. So 1101 is like Math 104 with support. 1011 is Math 110 with support. Math 1121 is statistics with support. So any of these three, you can place right into it, and the support time will be built right into your schedule. So that's where the pros and cons come with this. So all of these courses are still going to be listed as 4-credit courses as far as your transcript goes. So Math 1121 would be on your schedule or on your transcript, and it would be a 4-credit class. So that's what counts for your total of 60 or 62, depending on what degree you're working on. But the difference is that the class time will be 6 contact hours. So contact hours means how many hours a week you are actually expected to be in that class. And anybody that's taken a science class, or we may have talked about this a little bit, a lot of the science classes, like for example, Bio 271, Anatomy and Physiology, is a 4-credit class, but it's 6 contact hours. So that includes your lecture hours and your lab time. So 6 hours a week, you're expected to be in that classroom taking that class. So that's kind of the pro and the con here, is that that time is built right into your schedule. And it seems they're still kind of clarifying how they're going to run these, but from what we have seen and heard from SC4, they're going to be very similar to the science classes, where like maybe 4 hours a week, they're going to be doing the basic lecture stuff, where you're going to be getting the information. The instructors are going to be giving you examples, helping you work through stuff in class. And then that's going to be the new statistics material, where like 4 hours a week, you'll be doing that. The other 2 hours, you would be doing the support stuff. So whatever topic you're talking about in statistics, the instructor would be spending a couple hours a week going back to old things like from algebra, pre-algebra, geometry, and kind of filling in whatever gaps people have in their old classes. So that's where the support is really there. It's from your actual instructor, and it's built right into your schedule. So you don't, maybe you won't have to worry about figuring out when can you get to the tutor. The con of that, though, is that 6 hours a week is a lot to fit into your schedule when you're also taking high school classes. So that's just something to consider. what I would recommend is that if you are even thinking about this, and actually I say it somewhere, reach out to me and I can kind of talk you through, like, is that a good idea? Or should you maybe just take the real class? The regular standalone class is how they're calling those. So like Math 1120 Intro to Statistics is the standalone. 1121 Intro to Statistics with Support is the matching class there. So if you're struggling with the AccuPlacer, or you do have the test anxiety, or you're like, you know what, I did okay in Algebra 2, I got a B and a C, but I know that I'm going to need a little extra help, these will be great classes for that. It's just making sure you have the time in your schedule for that. Something also to keep in mind for maybe someday is that these do cost extra money. It doesn't matter to you. SC or middle college is still paying for that, and we're happy to pay for these classes with support for the extra hours. If it will help people be successful, that we're happy to do that. But just something to keep in mind for the future. So if you end up being at the end of your 3 years and having a class or two left to take, this would be something to keep in mind, that these with support classes are going to be a little bit more expensive. So the lab type is built in. I've already kind of touched on that. The downside is scheduling that time into your weekly schedule, 6 hours a week versus the 4. Total left turn here is another new course that they've created. Math 1000 is Math for Everyday Life. So this could be a great class just if you're interested in it. This is what I think more math should include, stuff like this, things that are actually relevant to your real life. This can be something that could potentially complete your final year math requirement, which we'll talk about in more detail in a second. It will count towards the general education degree, but that is it. So it will not count for the MTA, the Michigan Transfer Agreement, and it will not count for the arts and science degrees, and it will not be transferable. So it has no prerequisites. It's a class you can just take, and it's a math class. The math is very basic. They give you a lot of support within it. But it's not something that's going to count for a lot of requirements, but just something to keep in mind as like a backup plan later on if it comes to it. So just kind of touching on that, the math related course for your grade 13. So right now, as you're scheduling for your 12th grade year, a lot of your counselors are probably referring to this as senior math, but it's not actually, that's not technically the rule. The law from the state actually words it as students must take a math related experience in your final year of high school. So for every kid, every student that's in a middle college, whether it's here or in another city, if you are here for a 13th year, that is your final year. And that's when you have to definitely take a math related course. It doesn't mean you shouldn't take it senior year. I think you should. As a former math teacher, I am always of the mindset of like, keep taking math until you know you are done and you don't need any more math, because it's hard to pick it back up after you take a break. So I recommend finish your 4 math credits with your senior year next year, finish your 4 credits, save your SC4 math requirement for your 13th year. That's a way that you can do basically the least amount of math. If you end up taking, let's say, your math requirement for your SC4 degree next year in 12th grade, then you could take other classes that will fulfill that requirement. A lot of science classes like chemistry and physics count for that. Accounting can count for that. And then this new class, Math for Everyday Life, could count for that. So this is still a 4 credit course like most of the math courses, but it would be 5 contact hours. Okay, so if you have questions, as always, ask me. All of the new courses are going to have both in-person and online section options available. I do not recommend really anybody to take their math classes online. I have seen students through the years with great grades, math being even kind of their strength subject, struggle with online classes, and then there's not really very many places to go for support. If math is not your strength, or if you're considering one of the with support classes, I especially do not recommend taking a math class online. I understand that people really need the math or the online classes for flexibility. especially in the senior year, as you're doing all kinds of stuff at the high school, playing sports, maybe you're working. The schools that are far away, those of you that are coming from like Algonac or Yale or any of the schools that aren't just right in town, I understand that online classes are a wonderful thing, but we are seeing a lot of people that when a student is struggling and ends up with a C- or lower, or withdraws from their math class, it's usually an online section. I've had students go to their instructor for help, emailing them or reaching out on Canvas and being told, why did you take an online math class if math is not something that you feel confident about? Or if you need help with math, why did you take this online? And it is a valid point. I think it's a rude way to address it, but it is a good point. So if math is something that worries you, do not take it online. Any subject that worries you, don't take it online. The whole online thing has been a wonderful, great option for flexibility and kind of a silver lining from these last few years of COVID craziness, but it's not a guarantee that you can take a whole college degree online. So that's just something, math, science, English, take it in person. One thing about the math that we haven't talked a lot about through the years, but all college courses have this 3 attempts rule. And that's not just at SC4, I believe that's at any college, where you are only allowed to take any particular class 3 times. So some of our students have fallen into this where, let's say you took Psychology 180 in the fall and it didn't go well and you withdraw from it. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to take it again in the winter. And now you got a D, but it's something you actually need for a prerequisite for something you need. SC4 will not let you take it a 3rd time until they grant you approval. And usually they're going to want to see a semester or 2 of success, basically a C or higher in everything you take, before they would let you retake it at all. If you have taken a math class already and either failed or withdrawn from it, that counts towards the new course number. So like Math 104, if you took that once, you don't get 3 new attempts with the new course number, Math 1100. It would still count towards that. They have assured us transferability should not be affected with these course number changes, but we also know that all of those online transfer resources will take some time to be updated. SC4's priority right now is getting everything updated in the system so that registration will be seamless. And that everything will be there and easy to register for the new course numbers, and it'll be clear what class you're registering for. And after that is where they're going to start kind of sending these things to the 4-year schools. And some 4-year schools are going to be probably really quick at updating their records, and then some are not. So when we're looking at transfer guides, or we're looking at this thing called the Michigan Transfer Network, those things might not be updated right away, but things should still transfer the way they have. One other thing that's coming from this is that the science courses, if they had a prerequisite of Math 75 or English 75, they have eliminated those. But if they had higher prerequisites, like for example, like Physics 221, you have to have Calculus 1 done before you can take that. Those prerequisites still remain. So if it's higher than kind of those first English 75 or Math 75, those prerequisites are still on there, but anything that had the lower ones, those are removed. I see questions, or I just saw some chat. It looks like Mrs. Barr is just begging you guys to ask questions. So just a reminder, she is there in the chat if you have questions about any of this. In the in-person class or session, very few people did ask questions about this, and I understand, because I think the questions that people have are about their specific situation, and that's totally fine. That's where, like, we'll get to a slide that has my email. So email me if you have any questions about your individual situation with English or math. The other side of it is that SC4 has added a new English course called English 100. It is basically English Composition 1, which is English 101 with basic writing skills. So it's like English 101 with support. It's still a 3-credit class for credits on your transcript and towards your total credits, but it will be 6 contact hours. So again, your class schedule would be 6 hours per week. You would be in class. This will again transfer like English 101 and will count for MTA and the arts and science degrees, or basically any degree where it requires English 101, which is pretty much every degree at SC4. You would take, or a student would take English 100 or 101. You would not take both. It's basically for your first English composition 1, it's 100 or 101. And then you would take English composition 2, which is English 102. So it's still just two English classes. It's just you have some choice for your first one. If you have any questions about any of this, please email me. Again, it might not be immediate that I get back to you, but I'll do it as quickly as I can. And definitely I'll get everybody an answer before registration. I will say that as people are reaching out, I'm trying to prioritize 12th graders because they are in a situation where they have to be taking their English and math next year if they haven't already. And so they do need the answers a little bit faster. Right now, I would say if you have questions about the English and math, you may just want to wait and not do it in the fall. We'll know a lot more in the next few months and after that first fall semester is over about how it's all going to be, and we'll have this all down pretty quickly, but it's just very, very new right now. And so that's where if you have questions, you may just want to be patient and wait and take your math and English a little bit later. So that's all about the math and English. So back to just kind of the regular program is what we'd be talking about in any success session going into registration, is just refreshing your memory on how to register and what you should be registering. So our page here, I'm going to show you a few things. These are the pages where, again, like let's go to planning for your degree. I had these amazing videos. They were just brilliantly produced. Not really, they were very boring. It was basically just like this, me going through a PowerPoint, but describing how you choose your classes based on what degree you are taking. I will be making new videos for this, I think, hopefully tomorrow morning, and we'll get those up as soon as possible. Again, SC4 registration had very detailed videos. We now have kind of good step-by-step instructions here. But if you need some help with the service center or just refreshing your memory on that, that stuff is coming very soon. One page that is updated and all of this stuff is here is the scheduling documents and links. These have all been updated with the new math stuff. So let's touch on this right now. So these associate degrees are the same. We did not add the English thing, so I will update that, and I should make myself a note to add English 100 to the degrees. So we'll be updating that, and those will be updated on there, and those will be sent to you tomorrow. But the math is updated here with the new numbers, and then a note of like what that was previously. So you do have additional options that can count for your degrees. That's really the only change that's happening with the degrees this year. The AP course exam equivalency sheet was always here. So if you are taking an AP class now or planning one for next year, this can tell you what score you would need to get and then what class you would get at SC4. The math pathway chart was the other piece of basically we had a chart like this. This has the new numbers on it and kind of the new paths depending on what class you ultimately want to finish your degree requirement with. So again, this will be emailed to you. And again, the end goal is not different. You still need basically statistics or pre-calc or higher for science, or you need statistics, pre-calc, or foundations of math for the arts. The new class, MAT or Math 1000, Math for Everyday Life, is an additional option, but just for the general education degree. And while we're on that, I'm going to just kind of talk about the general education degree. At this point in your time with us, no one should be shooting for the general education degree. This is kind of a backup plan degree. So the requirements for this degree are much lighter. There's fewer requirements here. Basically, just this list. But this degree does not complete the Michigan transfer agreement like the Associate of Arts or the Associate of Science does. So if you know that you're going on to a 4-year school, the general education degree is not going to get it done for you. Okay, this would be basically if things go wrong or things go haywire over the next year or two, and you end up getting behind, the gen ed degree is kind of a backup plan. The pathway chart I already showed you. The math course number changes that we looked at are here as well. And again, all this stuff is here, but then will also be emailed to you. The Michigan transfer agreement doesn't change. It's just the numbers. This one has been updated where your first English can be 100 or 101. And the math changes are listed here as well. Basically, it's like math 104, 113 or 120. Same as kind of the arts degree. That's what counts for the MTA. So that's all there. Also, this there's a better version that we'll be emailing to you, and I'm going to be updating on here. That's just a little bit easier to type in. Basically, we have, I think a Word doc is a great one for this because you can literally type your stuff in and save this electronically. And again, we've done this back in seminar, and this would be something we could do with you together, or you can work on, but you can update that yourself and have it just kind of ongoing. So all your resources are there. We'll have more videos on the website or on these web pages tomorrow, and then I'll be sending you the email with all these links and reminders. Yeah, that's our website. So if you need help with registration stuff, that's the place to start. And then like try this on your own a little bit. You're now going into your second year. So I have a lot of people just like, can I set up a meeting? And that's wonderful. I'm happy to meet with everybody, but it's hard for me to meet with every single person before every single registration period, right? So that's why I get completely overloaded at this time of year. So if you are in a hurry to figure it out, you are capable of figuring it out yourself. You just might need to take that time. But if you have some time, and now would be the time to email me and say, it's okay if it's not immediate, but I do want to talk to you before registration. Now is the time to let me know that. This other link is to all of the associate degrees. So if you are not working on the arts or science and you're working on a more specific applied degree, like criminal justice, a CIS degree, mechatronics, something like that, that's where you can access these. If you click on the degree, it then brings you up to the explanation or kind of summary of that field, what kind of jobs you can get. And then most helpful for you in your planning is the specific list of classes. So you can click on the class and it gives you more information about this particular class. It also lists the prerequisites and it tells you the credits and the contact hours. So this is really helpful for your planning. If you are doing one of these applied degrees, it's really important that you click through every single thing and find out the prerequisites, because then you have to plan and work backwards to figure out what to take first. So like this one has 2 prerequisites. So you need to take these before you can take ETM 280. So if you're doing an applied degree, you may want to set a time up, and then we maybe should really get a good plan, because a lot of times you need to be starting some prerequisites in the fall in order to be able to hit all of the things that you need to do before the end of your 13th year. Okay, so that's all their prerequisites we just touched on, is that you really need to make sure that you're planning that out using the program of study. This thing where you can plan out your 6 semesters is really helpful as you're going into these next couple years to map it all out. So again, if you're doing an applied degree, or if you're going into something like engineering, where you're going to take all of the math, basically, you need to figure out, what do I need to take here in order to get through all of it by the end of my 3 years? Some classes have prerequisites that are grade-based. So Bio 271 and Bio 272 are the 2 anatomy and physiology. And the Bio 272 requires you to actually have a C or better in the first one before you can take the second one. So those are rare, but there are some instances of that. I think basically like these, the chemistries, the physics might have those as well. Econ is unique that they want you to have completed 20 credits or more before you can take Econ 221, the first one. So just make sure you're paying attention to those. Know what you need, plan it all out now instead of just one semester at a time. You're getting a little bit into the thicker areas. This is just an example, just to point out that to get to your end goal of 60, it's time to start planning out your 12th grade year so that you can get to maybe 30, 32 credits by the end of your 12th grade year to put yourself in line to have an easier path in your 13th year. Basically, the worst case scenario is that you need to be to at least 26 credits by the end of 12th grade year in order to stay on track to get your degree on time. We can pay for 17 credits each semester in your 13th year, which is a total of 34. So 60 minus 34 leaves you that 26. So that's why that's kind of the minimum that you want to shoot for. But ideally, if you can plan to get 30 credits done by the end of next year, you'll be in good shape for pretty much any degree. Now it's also the time, I kind of have said this as we're meeting with the new people, I'm thinking of the stuff that I'm saying right now in my head that I'm telling them, you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to know what you want to do. You can kind of just check through some basics while you're with us. And that is absolutely true. So if you don't know this stuff right now, that's okay. But next year might be a good time to try to start getting a clearer idea of what you want to do for a career, getting that information of what education do you need, what bachelor's degree do you need to get for that, what colleges have that degree, and then start looking at exactly what does that college require and what can you take here at SC4 that will transfer for that. So if you have ideas of what you want to do and where you want to go, that's the stuff that we can help you with now. So again, basically ask me for help. If you tell me I want to be an electrical engineer and I really don't even know where I want to go, I can help you figure that out. Or if you know, I want to go to Oakland and major in psychology, we can look up exactly what you can take. There's these transfer guides that are out there, and that's what we can help you figure out. You can do some research on your own, but be very careful with this. I would say start the research on your own and then still meet with one of us to kind of double check that. We'll meet with SC4 advisors to double check our work and then triple check with the advisors at the four-year schools. There's reasons for all of that. Again, this is one of these things where I see people make mistakes, and in 13th year, they want to make it that I didn't tell them stuff or I told them something wrong. It is rare, but I do make mistakes, and I can't give everybody like 600 people every information, right? So this is where we're teaching you how to do this stuff. I can help you individually, but human nature is that people do make mistakes. So that's why we need to double check it with SC4 advisors once a year, I recommend. And we definitely need in your 13th year to be double checking it as you're getting ready to finish your degree. And then it is super helpful if we start reaching out to four-year school advisors now even. So most of the schools, it used to be kind of in the olden days when I was in college, is that a Michigan State advisor wouldn't really even work with you until you applied, you were admitted, and you were at your orientation. You couldn't just like make an appointment with an advisor. But now they're realizing it's really helpful if as soon as you're thinking about going there, reach out and say, hey, I'm thinking I want to transfer to Michigan State and major in supply chain management, which is exactly what I ultimately ended up doing. After a few major changes, they can tell you exactly what you can take at SC4 that will transfer there. So again, we can do that research. You can do that research, or you can go right to the source, and advisors at the four-year schools will help you with that as well. At the very minimum, if you complete the Michigan transfer agreement, or you complete basically the arts or science degree, and that completes the Michigan transfer agreement, then that's a guaranteed check for things. I just have been working with a student who she did not get a C or higher in English 101, but she moved on, took English 102 and kind of thought she had the MTA done, transferred away. And that 4-year school is like, well, you still have that one thing missing. And actually not having the MTA means you have to take all of the general education stuff. And there's actually going to be like 5 classes that you're going to need to take. That's a drastic example. Most of the time, the classes you're taking for the MTA or for the arts or science degrees are they're going to transfer one by one. And most of the time, they're going to check those requirements off anyway. But some schools have specific requirements, like they might require you to take a specific cultural class where you would choose like Japanese culture or history or something like that. That would mean if you don't get credit for that class by finishing the MTA and having the general education stuff checked off. You don't get that class credit, but they don't require you to take it. So it can be helpful, and you're close enough by doing the arts and science. You complete it by doing the arts and science that it's worth doing. If you are thinking about doing the business transfer degree, like you're going to go eventually get a bachelor's degree in business, what I recommend is combining the business transfer degree and then with your electives for that, doing the MTA. So if you're thinking about that, reach out to one of us, me probably easiest, and I'll help you kind of map that out. So this is an option. There is a flexibility that you can use college classes to complete high school graduation requirements. I don't recommend this either. And again, a lot of these things where I feel like I'm getting on a soapbox or ranting about is that we're currently working also with 13th year students who have had mistakes happen. Or I have worked many times with a 12th grade student who, well, instead of taking English at the high school, I'm going to take English 101 and 102. And that's how I'm going to get my requirements done. And that's great. Sometimes it works. It actually works very well for most people. But then sometimes even a good student with a great grade GPA ends up having something happen. Life happens, and now they have to withdraw, or the instructor wasn't being very responsive and they weren't getting what was going on, and now it's not going well. I would never want to see somebody not be able to graduate because you could have just done it at the high school, but decided to do it with college classes instead. The high school instructors or high school teachers are kind of required to work with you a little bit to give you a path to finish that class and to pass that class. They're going to be a little bit more understanding if all of a sudden you get mono in the middle of the semester. The college instructor is going to say like, oh, that stinks, but you still kind of got to get your stuff done. Like as adults, we go to work sick, like we move on with life, right? So that's where it is helpful that if you have a high school requirement remaining and you have the room in your schedule, just do it at the high school. If you have electives you're thinking about, you've done band this whole time and you need to make the space for it, absolutely, that is a case where use a college class. But that would be something that, again, probably you should talk to one of us about, and we can give you recommendations for maybe an easier option to check off a high school requirement. Sometimes also you need a certain class and you can't get it in a morning class period, which is another option that you could take a college class for that. And then of course, if anybody is doing tech with middle college, then you are in a scenario where you kind of have to finish your high school requirements with college classes. But there's very few cases where people absolutely do need that. But let us help you figure out, do you need it or do you just not want to do it at the high school? And another thing to point out is that you still have to take 3 high school classes next year. So you might as well take stuff that will be challenging, hold your attention, and not just be a brutal thing to kind of like get through. And then one more point on it, and then I'll let it go, is that when you're applying to 4-year schools, they want to see, they're going to be very impressed that you have done Blue Water Middle College and you've taken on college while you're still in high school. But they want to see that you're still challenging yourself in every place. So they kind of talk about it as they want to see students excelling in the highest level courses they can excel in. So if that means you can take a bunch of AP and you can take challenging courses here and still maintain A's or high B's, great. But if you need to scale it back to get your grades up to those A's and high B's, then maybe that's what you need to do. But there's sometimes we're seeing the opposite, where people are taking classes that are much easier than what they're capable of. And if you have straight A's in a bunch of like electives that don't really mean anything to you or what you want to do for a career, that doesn't look like a challenge that you've taken on to the colleges. So rant over there. So let us know if you have questions about it. Basically, Mrs. Barr does a review of everyone's progress towards their high school graduation, and we'll be mailing that home over the summer. It'll list what you have left, and then either what you have scheduled already that's going to complete them, or what you can take to complete them. We have already talked about the math. You can and should probably still continue to take math next year in your senior year, but just know that you will also need something math related in your 13th year. Let me know if you have questions. The other piece is your time constraint. So you have basically an extra hour of life by just taking 3 high school classes. So if you go to Algonac, Capac, Memphis, or Yale, you can take classes starting at noon. And if you are, a lucky person who lives right in Port Huron and so close to the college, a Port Huron High or Port Huron Northern student, you can take college classes starting at 11:30. There are very few options for classes that start at 11:30. So most likely you'll be starting at noon like the others. Don't let 11:30 get twisted in your head and think 11 a.m. There's not enough time for you to safely leave the high school and get to your college class in the time for an 11 a.m. class. Every year we have people feel like they should be the exception to this rule. And it's their only exception would be if you are taking an online high school class, and the counselors have been asked not to adjust, like they have your schedule as it is. Just plan 12 o'clock classes or later. Don't schedule an 11 o'clock and think it's going to slide. Mrs. Barr catches you every time, and she will drop your class and tell you to choose a new one. So make sure you're checking your email too, because if there's any issues with your schedule, Mrs. Barr would be reaching out to kind of give you a heads up and ask you to rework that. Another thing we wanted to point out, because we are seeing some instances where people are basically not scheduling around their sports or other activities. So if you know that you're going to be having to leave for an away game or something where you're going to have to leave early, don't let that be the exception. It might happen once or twice in a semester or over a sport season, but it shouldn't be part of your weekly schedule. We've had some instructors actually reach out and say, I have this student who he's told me like 5 times now that he needs to leave early for an away game. And it's like he's going to have a ding on his attendance grade. So you don't get school business excused like you do at the high school. You still have to do that, and you still have to show up for class. You still have to do your work. So reach out to your coaches now if possible, or look at your schedule from this year and see, obviously they're not going to be exactly the same next year, but you should be able to have some idea on like, okay, well, we seem like we're mostly having Tuesday and Thursday games. Maybe I need to schedule Monday and Wednesday classes, or schedule evening classes, or potentially that's where you do take some online classes, but do some easier stuff than like the English, math, science for those. So ask again if you have questions, as always. And again, just another note, this was actually a previous slide that was here before we added all this math stuff, but the same thing. If your challenging subject, whatever your challenge subject is, take it in person. I really, really recommend that. And again, most times if students end up struggling, it most of the time is an online class. I think most people are aware of this, but if you are interested in any of the nursing or any of the other health science degrees at SC4, you can be doing your prerequisites now and then apply for these programs in the spring of your 12th grade year to potentially get accepted and start them in your 13th year. So it basically moves things up a year. There are prerequisites for all of these programs though, so it's not really possible just to start it next year, but you could apply in the spring next year and then start in your 13th year. So if you're interested in any of those, let me know. and I can kind of talk through the prereqs with you. The service center is a great tool for planning. Again, we'll have those videos up and kind of walk you through in more detail how to access those. But I think at this point, you've seen this now already, and it's fairly user friendly. So go in there, start kind of exploring, start looking at what classes you think you want to take, and get your schedule sort of planned out, get the things onto your schedule. And then if you have questions or need help with that, let us know. You can check your course placement in your, if you have taken the AccuPlacer, but you don't remember where that placed you. So if you go to the service center and log in, this will look slightly different for you. Like you don't have employee or advising tabs, but student planning is where you do all of the registration stuff. So you can go to plan and schedule, and you can search for classes. Like if you know, I for sure want to take Psychology 180, you can type it right into the search bar and it comes up. You can click here, and right now it's only going to show current winter classes or upcoming summer classes, because those are the only semesters with registration open. But as we get closer to fall registration opening, those will be there. Again, registration opens April 17th. They will have the sections up and viewable by April 10th at the latest, probably pretty close to that. With all of these changes with the math, that has probably slowed them down a bit. But it's possible they would be there early. Once you have your plan, you can kind of look and map it out. You can register one by one once that opens. You can register up here. I feel like it's usually like register all is what the wording is. These things that are beige, this like beigey yellow and says planned, that is not an official class on your schedule. That's basically just your shopping cart, and it's not bought until you actually hit register. It will turn green and say register but not yet started. That's just a reminder for when you are making this all official. You can also click on print and it'll pull up your whole schedule that looks like this, a lot nicer, which again, all of these are planned, they are not official. So that's kind of just a few basics there. You can use that how to, okay, so there's view my progress. Unfortunately, I am not a current student, so it won't show up there. So it's not super helpful, but I'll show you where you're at. If you click go to my progress, it will actually bring you to a page with information, because you will have an active program there. And that's where you can see kind of what you have left. But I do recommend the worksheets are usually the best way to just kind of see what you have to take and plan it out that way. And then you can add it to your schedule. So again, update the views will be, or the, oh my gosh, the website will be updated with videos. Hopefully maybe tomorrow, but by the end of the week at the latest, I'm hoping, although these weeks are going so fast and tomorrow's Wednesday already. So as soon as I possibly can, hopefully tomorrow, some of those videos will be back up there. Again, if you have any questions on anything related to degree planning, registration, any of it, email me. That is my email address. You have some homework for this session, which is to do this Google form. Pretty much every time we see you, we have you do one of these, and I don't know why these are not coming up. I did this earlier. Sorry, let me just get, I would love to be able to just drop this in the chat for you. I don't know why clicking on it hasn't been working, but that's scaring me. Yes, so putting that link in brings up the Google form. I will put that here as well. But everyone does have to do that. And that's basically like your homework for this semester or for this success session. Let's see if I click there, if it opens it up. Oh, goodness. So it thinks it's a picture. Not sure why it's doing that, but this link here works. Goodness gracious. I don't know why it printed it as a picture and that, but so that is that. I'll also be sending this link in the email. So if the chat is giving anybody else trouble like it is for me, then you can get to it that way. But I would love everybody to have this done by Friday, April 14th, because it's going to walk you through what you need for your degree and help you get ready to know what you need so that you can know what to register for. So good luck with all that. Ask for help if you need it. And